So it's time for you to talk and tell me what else I should know about neuropathy, and I'll answer questions. Yes?
Going back to Andrew's study,
Yes.
when they did that with him and he was on all that medication, did they do cold turkey with all his medication?
No,
or
never.
Did they reduce that? And in the end, was he still on medication as well as the nutrients?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question, because it's
Repeat the question.
sure. The question was specific to Andrew, but it's really a general question.
Yes.
For Andrew, was he on medication, psychiatric medication, when he went on to the minerals and vitamins? What happened with his medication eventually? So I think he was still on a bit of medication when he started on the formulas. Never, ever, ever cold turkey off of any psychiatric medication. Never, ever, ever cold turkey off of it. And in fact, don't even decrease if you're going to try one of these formulas until you've gotten onto the formula and you talk to someone on the micronutrient support line at one of the companies, okay? But for what most people do is they add a certain amount, a small amount of the micronutrients, and when they start to feel a bit better, then they will decrease some of their meds very gradually. And hopefully under your doctor's direction. Many doctors work with these companies now. Not many in Alberta, but many around the world. Sorry. Did that answer? Oh, and by the way, Andrew is no longer in any medication, to the best of my knowledge.
So blood tests were being taken not only for the meds, but the changes going down. Also, would have to be for the nutrients too, because we cannot take too many or not enough nutrients, and these blood tests can help. So he did not.
No, blood tests are not that useful. I'm sorry to tell you. The blood tests for nutrients, and we have this published in a number of our studies, looking for serum levels of various nutrients as predictors to response. Serum levels don't really tell what's needed by the brain or even what's up in the brain. Serum levels are from peripheral blood. So serum levels are proving not to be very useful. But you're not overdosing with these formulas. These are all, the very fact that I've told you they've been reviewed and approved by the 2 federal governments, they're all below the dietary reference intake levels. They're called the tolerable upper levels for chronic consumption. They are not toxic levels. We have published data on hundreds of people in terms of heart rate, blood pressure, blood tests for kidney and liver function. There's never been, not that there won't be someday, but there's never yet been an adverse reaction or any sign of difficulty. So no, I think blood tests are wonderful for certain things, but not for this. Okay, we'll take you, and then you. Yes.
You may have mentioned this early on, I didn't catch it, but these 2 formulas, and they're both being studied.
Yes.
Is there any difference? Like, how would you
There is a
choose which
difference.
one?
Yeah, I get asked this all the time.
Can you repeat it?
Yes, thank you. Keep reminding me of that, by the way, because I always forget to repeat the question, and I've certainly given hundreds of lectures, and it's a real consistent weakness. So, repeat the question. And now I've forgotten. What did you ask me?
I'm wondering if there's a difference between those 2 formulas.
Difference
How
between
would you
the 2
choose
formulas,
which
yes.
one?
There are slight differences. Some people, like the Hardy family, thinks that there are very important differences, and some psychiatrists down in the States are leaning in the direction of using their formula because of methylating the folate and the B12. But now True Hope has put out a version with methylated B12 and folate. I'm not going to go into that story, but there are some other differences. But in terms of our scientific results, we haven't done a head-to-head comparison yet. That would be expensive, and who would fund that? We still are trying to make the point that we're able to help people, but we subjectively have not seen a big difference. When friends ask me, I say, take your pick. You can buy the one over the counter here in Calgary, but if you are on, and that's the True Hope formula, but if you're on a medication, you should buy it first from the company and get advice, okay? Otherwise, I don't know how to tell you
So
how
I
to
think
choose.
about with your anecdote with the guy with the muscle spasms. Do you know
Oh, which one is he on? I think he's on, I don't remember which he's on, I'm sorry.
Could you find out and let
Wait.
me know and I could pass it
Yeah,
on?
the question was the man with neuropathy who got rid of the muscle spasms, which one is he on? I might be able to look at the email here, but I'll answer questions for now. Yes, and then yes.
I have neuropathy, and I have such severe leg cramps that I used to literally scream out in pain. And a year ago, I went into emergency, and I had a wonderful doctor, Dr. Van Wyck. She put me on phosphate and magnesium and ramipril and lorilipine, and you know, they just completely disappeared, and just a rare time that I get a mild,
Good.
almost next to nothing. So that, I don't know what really worked.
So may I just repeat that before you go on? So this woman had such severe muscle cramps, she ended up in the emergency room. I'm sorry to be so ignorant, I didn't know as part of it. And a doctor there gave her a medication called ramipril, and she gave her magnesium phosphate and
increased calcium.
Increased
From
calcium.
500 to 1,000
Right.
milligrams.
and
then-
they're essentially gone.
Yeah, and I don't know which one had that effect on me,
Right.
but these were the changes that were made. I went in because they thought I was having a heart attack.
Really?
And so there was 11 things that Dr. Van Wyck, and she corrected it. But as a result, I had no more cramps, and I was thrilled, because that was very, very painful. So maybe one of those things can help.
Could be.
And I'm wondering about vitamin D. I was taking 2,000 units, and I was put back to 1,000 because the doctor said that the studies indicate that it doesn't help anything at all, and I disagree. I feel that that's very important. I'm a pulmonary doctor, agreed, but he did put in the report, and I'm wondering what your take is on vitamin D, because I really feel that, especially now over winter, they cut it back in November. I thought
The question is what I think about taking 1,000 instead of 2,000 IUs of vitamin D. I'm not a nutritionist. My training is experimental psychology, physiological psychology, neurophysiology. My reading of the literature is that if you live north of Atlanta, you might want to consider taking some vitamin D in the winter, but that what the research shows is that it really, to me it's the same old thing. You take it alone, don't expect, there is no magic pill. There's no single magic ingredient, but it does help calcium be absorbed. That's why you so often get calcium and vitamin D together. And so we should be getting some of that for calcium and vitamin D, unless you're getting an awful lot of calcium in your food. But I can't tell you I wouldn't recommend about a dose. It's out of my expertise. Okay? Question back there?
Well, my question was sort of related back, wondering which formula the man was on, your physician friend, if it was the Hardy or the True Hope. Could you, when you send the emails, would you be able to put that up on?
I will check. I'm sure I just tried to look at it on my iPhone and I couldn't search properly and can't click and talk. So I will find out.
So what is your website then?
I have a Facebook page called Nutrition and Mental Health, and I have videos there. And then you can email me if you want other information. Okay? I will make sure Sylvia knows what formula he took. Please remember, this is not a study. This is an anecdote of an acquaintance. And what helped him might not help you. It's really important that you know that. Okay? I've been only on this side. This side is quiet. I'll stay over here then. Yes.
Nutrition help an addict?
This is a really interesting question. Would nutrition help an addict? This is, would vitamins help someone who's addicted to something? There is so much anecdotal evidence that when we are better nourished, we have fewer cravings. And people use nutrition to reduce cravings. People use free-form amino acids to avoid withdrawal symptoms. I have contacted multiple rehab centers. I confess none in Calgary, but ones that were known for being kind of innovative, to see if they would like to do a study using some of these things to reduce withdrawal symptoms, and they're not. They kind of have their own way of doing things. So I don't think there's good scientific data. Back in about 1960, a guy named Kenneth Blum from the University of Texas published a few things, but they're not very well followed up or done. So don't have good answers.
Would they help the True Hope and those things help
What kind of addiction are we talking about?
An opiate.
An opiate addiction? I don't think I have any idea. Call them and ask them, either company, as to whether they've worked with opiate addictions at all. I don't know. Yeah. One back there, then one in the middle. Yes.
Just two quick questions. One is, what age does the brain stop having the plasticity in for teenagers, or is it 25 or?
No, that's a very interesting question about plastic. When do our brains stop being plastic? There's pretty good evidence the answer is never. But if you're talking about growth and development, final myelination occurs around the age of between 25 and 30. And there's evidence for as high as age 30. Have any of you had kids or grandkids who really changed in their late 20s? It's like they figured out who they were going to be or something. Yeah, I certainly have seen that in people. But in terms of plasticity and cellular growth, there's no evidence that it ever stops completely. Yes?
My second question is, if you have someone who doesn't, like a teenager who will not eats junk food, okay?
Yeah.
Does supplementing with something like True Hope or any of these things, will it still help somewhat, even though the major diet is poor?
So again, this is a deeper question than you might realize. The question is, if someone is not eating well, is it worthwhile basically spending the money on nutrient supplementation, or will the junk somehow counteract the supplementation? And it kind of goes back to that slide I showed you about every bite that we eat. We're making a choice. And there is a bit of evidence that some of the junky stuff is not good for our brains. But there's every reason to think that adding nutrients would be beneficial. Will the teenager in question take some pills? So there is no oppositionality here. Good for you, then it's worth exploring. In the blue, yes. Thanks.
Is there any relationship between micronutrients and memory loss?
Oh, thank you for asking that. You're asking excellent questions. So my next door neighbor just confided in me that she has a relative who she's quite certain is headed into severe cognitive decline. And I promised her I'd do a literature review to find out how good the data are on whether or not we can prevent cognitive decline by adding supplementary nutrients, which was the question. I didn't repeat the question, see? Anyway, that was the question. I haven't finished that yet, but I was surprised that there are a few studies. These are such difficult studies to do. Just imagine if we asked all of you to be in a study and we did cognitive function tests on you, and then we gave maybe half of you some kind of, maybe a broad spectrum formula and the other half not. But we weren't controlling how you were eating and which of you had serious illnesses going on and which of you started other medications which can cause cognitive problems. Very hard to do. But especially from the UK, there are some studies that suggest improving nutrition is beneficial. And there's a really good set of studies from the States. I don't know if I think it's relevant, by a guy named Behringer. He was doing a series of studies in nursing homes, basically, to see whether or not adding B-complex especially, but some other nutrients too, for seniors there, would lower the rates of flu and colds and stuff. And I have no idea why, but he threw in a measure of mood. And he reported, my goodness, they're less depressed. And by the way, they also were more resistant to flus and colds. All of these, I have never studied a mega dose of anything. Everything that I've spoken about in all of this literature, these are safe doses, and we have the evidence to back that up. Unless there is an inborn error of metabolism, which some people have, and they cannot tolerate some of these nutrients, we have no evidence of harm. So maybe it's worth a try, but I don't know if you'll see a benefit. Sorry, that was a long answer. Okay, yes.
Just a quick question, and where are they located, the vitamin people in Alberta?
Both companies are located in southern Alberta in Raymond, but both the formulas are manufactured by large, established natural health product contract manufacturers in the States. You buy it online. These are companies, the two men who formed the original company and then, they split up, Tony Steppen and David Hardy, are people that I've known since 1996. I hold them in highest regard. You can ignore most of what appears in the Calgary Herald about them or me. I don't know if you saw any of the garbage about me. Don't Google my name. You'll find out I'm a terrible person. And I'd rather you figure it out for yourself, okay? So you decide. People, there's no control over what people say. At any rate, so I was telling you, I hold them in the highest regard. And you can trust these two companies. It doesn't mean they fix every problem. They can't. They don't. And they won't fix all of yours. Okay? Did I answer that question? Okay. Oh, finally, this side. Okay. We'll go back to front this time. Jim.
You never mentioned, or I didn't hear, I'll put it the other way, sugar in your first opening slide. You mentioned gluten and everything else, and I read the other day that the average American eats about 200 pounds of sugar a year, and about 180 pounds of gluten.
Yeah.
And I suspect the Canadians are along that. Maybe just make a little mention on sugar and
Sure.
as well.
Let's talk about the culprit of the day, sugar. That's what the question was. So yes, sugar is not particularly good for us. There is growing evidence that it's bad for us. It is certainly bad for people who are possibly headed toward diabetes. It's increasingly evident that it might be bad in terms of risk for cancer. And I don't know how good the data are, but I've read a few things. And the fact is that if you're eating your calories with liquid sugar, the sodas, as our teenagers do, then you're not eating them with healthy food. The Mediterranean diet, or the Mediterranean type diet, the unprocessed food, healthy diet, you buy from around the outside of a grocery store and you cook from scratch, and you don't find sugar that way. So everyone is better off minimizing it. Does that mean you can never have a cookie? No. That's ridiculous, you know. That's why I like that one graph I showed you from the Spanish study that showed it's okay to have something occasionally, right? The people in the middle of the room here, hypothetically, you're okay. So is that enough about the sugar? Okay.
What about coconut sugar and cane sugar versus refined sugar?
Yeah, I don't think I want to talk about the MCT oils and all of that. I think it gets too complex for this. I'm sorry. You know too much. I know a few people in the audience. Okay, you're next, then you. Okay.
Just wondering, you mentioned that you can get that online. Is that the only place you can get the Empower Plus?
No, I skipped over it lightly, so let me repeat. How to access these two companies. Hardy Nutritionals you only buy by phoning them up. Talk to them if you have any questions. They have people on a support line, or just people who answer the phone. Talk to them. And you can buy it online. Give them your credit card. They will mail it to you, okay? You can do the same thing with Empower Plus through True Hope. And if you have questions or if you're on medications, please do call and ask. Or if you want to ask them about their experience with neuropathy. But the True Hope people do have one version, and it's Empower Plus, but it has a slightly different name that you've seen in lots of the drugstores and health food stores here in Community Natural, and it's called True Hope EMP. And that one has a natural product number, and you can buy it in the store. But I urge you to buy through them online if you have some questions or issues first. Later, you can get it in the store. So one question here and then one back there. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just wondering about research that you are aware of about pregnant women and micronutrients.
Oh, excellent question. What about pregnant women and micronutrients? So have any of you heard of APRN? Alberta Pregnancy Outcomes and Nutrition Study? Okay, that was my baby. The last 8 years of my career, we set up a longitudinal pregnancy cohort, and we're answering questions about prenatal nutrition and perinatal nutrition and so forth. But more relevant to the question is Julia Rutledge in New Zealand, who does not have to deal with Health Canada, was able to just forge ahead and do a treatment study. And she's in the middle of a treatment study right now with pregnant women who have perinatal mood and anxiety problems. And I think she's using DEN, the Hardy formula, for that one. And people are randomized to active or placebo. And we don't have the results yet. It'll be over a year yet before we do, maybe 2 years. So I think a lot of us suspect that the perinatal vitamins are good and important, but not good enough. And there's a lot of research from the developing world to suggest that. There was a question way in back, Sam.
Do you have brochures here that have those email addresses or?
You mean the two companies?
Yeah.
No, but Sam, send me an email and I'll give you the links, okay? If
Yeah.
it's easier than writing it down.
Or when you came in, we asked for your email. So if you left your email, I can send that out to everybody too.
Okay, so-
Rather than you getting inundated,
Happy to.
you could
happy
just
to-
do it, I can send out a mass.
Sure.
But make sure we have your email. Because I know a lot of people just put a phone number and we're not going to phone. So put your email, please.
Don't just Google the names of the companies. You'll read terrible things.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one group, especially out of Ontario, that really has it in for anybody who, it's called Surcare, Quack Watchers, etc. And they decided a long time ago that nutrition was not important for brain function. And so they've really gone after us all over the world. Someone who hasn't asked a question, and then wait, yes.
I was just going to make a comment that I used to work in a retirement residence.
Hmm.
I wasn't involved with any of the health aspect. I was in the recreational field. But there were numerous people that would come there that were just tired of making their meals, etc. And they wanted to live in a residence where they could go down and eat. And because I did exercise, and they'd ask me some of these related questions. But they all commented on how much better they felt because I'm eating 3 squares a day, having good snacks. The dining room, the kitchen doesn't make or doesn't buy processed foods. It's all done in-house. And some of them cited mental health issues, depression, needing a sun lamp in their room because they felt so depressed. They gave up all that kind of stuff. And they just felt so, and they'd come out to more and more and more events as they lived there. It was wonderful to see.
That's a great story. People who eat well feel better. We have so much research on that. And yet I think that we have just recently brought up a generation of people who think of food as entertainment. Everything should be a treat. They don't understand. That's why I like to show that slide, the serotonin slide. They don't understand how important it is to feed their brains. So that's great. The tea and toast phenomenon is very bad for seniors. You know, I used to say I'm bored with food. I wish I could just take 1 pill a year, right? I mean, I never was that much into cooking. But I am more so now, I promise you. From scratch, every night with my husband. That's the way to do it. But truly, we evolved to eat 3 times a day for a reason, and maybe 5 times a day with snacks. It's because you need that in your brain and heart, okay? And by the way, I didn't talk about exercise, but I didn't talk about a lot of things related to mental health. Family support, social support, exercise, these are all important. It's just that I focused on nutrition, so thanks for mentioning that. There was another question here.
I just wanted to mention that when High River was flooded, you were saying how important it is for people to look after their health. A company by the name of Pure North came into High River and supplied everyone with vitamin program.
Right. We knew about it because we couldn't include those people in our study.
Yeah, but they
fortunately, we got the study started before they came in and flooded the whole community.
But it was just good to know that they were looked after.
They looked after people because the province wouldn't.
I don't know what happened in Fort Mac, but High River people really benefited.
Nothing happened in Fort Mac. I'm still angry about it. Anyway.
I'm going to ask the very last question.
Sure.
We are at a time. Can you build up a tolerance?
Oh, that's a great question. You know how the question is, can you build up a tolerance to vitamins and minerals? Because people build up tolerance to medications. I think we wouldn't have evolved as a species. I mean, we are totally dependent upon, I swear, some of the kids think that our cells are built out of air. What are our cells built out of? Every single thing in your brain, body, everywhere is a function of the nutrients that we take in. We can't build our cells out of nothing. So to the best of my knowledge, there is no nutrient to which we develop a resistance or habituation or anything. It wouldn't make sense in terms of evolution.
I can't thank you enough for being here
Thank you.
today.
Thank you.